Hey, it's Jean Nolan here. One of the most important things in my life is the health and the well-being of my family. And one of the products that we absolutely love to use and have had amazing results with is Z-Stack. It's Dr. Zelenko's Immunobooster, and it really does the job absolutely well. Now, as most of you know, Dr. Zelenko recently passed away, but he's left behind a legacy with Z-Stack and his other products, and also the Dr. Zelenko Freedom Foundation. So every time you purchase Z-Stack to help boost your immune system and the immune system of your family, 10% of the profits will also automatically go to the Freedom Foundation. So I encourage you to check it out, Z-Stack by Dr. Zelenko. Use the link and the coupon code in the description. Save and also help the foundation. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's Jean Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, for commenting, for subscribing, and for hitting the notifications button so you'll get notified about new videos every day. Okay, let's dive into it. Europe, brace for impact. This is not an exercise. This is not a drill. I think we are truly moving into a hot phase here. There's a number of things that indicate that overall, the path seems to show that major disruptions, conflicts, crisis, all of this could come in the next days, weeks, and months in Europe, especially in the winter. So what makes me say that? Well, just listen to last night to Putin's recent speech where he talked about the new regions that are going to Russia. Previously in the Ukraine, these were autonomous regions already. In this speech, which is very important to watch, it's about 30 minutes and I would encourage you to watch it. He goes through a lot. Obviously, we know Putin is a very intelligent man, extremely educated, one of the world leaders that can actually speak freely most of the time and make more than just sense. Also, having the respect to address the people, not like he's talking to children. That being said, I'm neither a big fanboy here or anything. This is not what this is about. But I want to say that in his speech, he touched on a lot of important things regarding the colonial powers of the past and regarding the deadly politics of the last 100 years or hundreds of years, actually. And a lot of it is what we have all observed. A lot of it is what we have all seen and haven't liked. Now, that all being said, at this critical juncture, especially with what has happened with the pipelines with Nord Stream 1 and 2, which cannot be emphasized enough, this was an escalation of epic proportions. You can hear and see and feel it in Putin's speech. There is even a new stage of clear resolve. There's no backing down anymore to these powers. Russia has gained a lot of power over the last years and, rebuilt everything that they lost in the 90s and early 2000s. So it was a long period, but they have rebuilt. So we're dealing with a very determined Russia right now, very determined Putin. And I think that the play ball right now, the in-between is Central Europe. That is, as always, when there is a conflict that spans the world, that's always the focal point. It's the easiest to manipulate. And of course, this would be different. We just went through 2.5 years of monumental worldwide crisis. And Europe has gone through that too. The economy is in a horrific state. Politics is in a very horrific state. As a matter of fact, before we dive into that, I just want to say that my view of Putin is very difficult because I also know he was in the Young Global Leaders Academy of the World Economic Forum. I don't know how much that has shaped his viewpoint. I also don't know how much he still believes in those values, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But regardless of my personal opinion, it's important to keep a close eye on what is happening there and know that there's a determined Russia, a determined Putin. So then we look at the economies, we look at what signals are coming from the EU, where we have the dictator, and she is truly the EU dictator. It's an unelected position of the EU president, basically. And that's Ursula von der Leyen, and she's standing in front of, all these audiences like the president of Europe, an unelected bureaucrat that I believe could very well be a Manchurian candidate under mind control. And just look at her association and her praising when she's received the award by the goalkeepers, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And notice the logo that's on this award.
It is such an honor to receive this award, and please allow me to dedicate it and to share it with millions of ordinary Europeans who have helped us all to make it through the pandemic. From the scientists who developed the life-saving vaccines, to the frontline workers in our hospitals and the essential services, this award is also for them. This is for sure.
So this logo, of course, must be familiar to you. It is the logo of the UN Agenda 2030. The UN Agenda 2030 that has been playing out in Europe for years has now been accelerated, and this is basically a complete reformation. It is the Great Reset. It is the implementation of a social credit system, and for that they are breaking down the structures. The problem here is that in almost all political positions throughout Europe, these leaders have been established and cemented in, and they are driving this home. There's almost no opposition. There's also extreme stupidity. I mean, they have literally put some of the greatest idiots out there in a powerful position, like the German chief idiot, secretary for the economy, that recently went on a TV interview and said, when asked if he expected a lot of insolvencies, bankruptcies by German companies because of the monumental explosion of energy prices and everything else, 600-700%, he said, no, they're not going to go bankrupt. They just have to close for a while. They're just going to have to stop producing for a while. Spoken like a true bureaucrat, never ever having spent a day actually building something or paying wages or producing, selling, whatever. Of course, this is complete lunacy. These incremental or these monumental price explosions, they come after already 2.5, 3 years of horrific, absolutely horrific damage to these companies that has been done to the economy at large, to the purchasing power of the German people, to the morale at large. So they have no clue what they're talking about. These are absolutely just useful idiots, but they are showing where the direction is going. They're not urging companies to close down. Companies have to close down. Small businesses all over Germany, Austria, and I assume all the other countries are closing down because they cannot afford to produce, because they cannot afford to pay their employees. And they are now exterminating the small and mid-sized businesses and the middle class that remained until now, all in favor, of course, of the huge corporations that have been propped up and supported and bailed out over the last years and decades. So that's what we're seeing, and Central Europe is now the epicenter of this crisis. That's why I say brace for impact. Of course, the EU dictator, von der Leyen, also comes out and clearly says, well, if there is a country that even slightly deviates from our plan, if there are anywhere non-liberal leaders elected, and if they stray away from what we tell them to do, what does she say here?
We'll see. If things go in a difficult direction, I've spoken about Hungary and Poland, we have tools. If things go in the right direction, and people as a body that is always, where always governments have to be accountable to, play an important role.
She says we have tools. Now, what does that mean? Madam Dictator, what does that mean? What kind of tools could you possibly have as an unelected, mind-controlled bureaucrat? What tools could you have? Well, I believe they have tools. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Insolvencies are going up. People aren't able to sustain themselves any longer. Governments keep screaming that they're going to simply subsidize and create more programs, more help. Of course, this is the goal. As we now see, they are desiring to take away any independence from the people. And what they're going to do is they're going to give them just enough to survive, just enough to eat. And they're going to put them on the government tit and absolutely make them dependent. So when the next restriction, the next mandates, the next anything comes and they have to be exposed to what kind of medical intervention they want, they have to do what the government wants them to do, they will do it because they won't have any means of income anymore. That is the plan, and they're going full throttle. Europe is currently really you all, if you're in Europe, you need to brace for impact. I don't think this is reversible at this point. There's a lot of things people can do because people are still resilient. There's still a lot of knowledge. Listen to your elders. If you can, learn how to grow a garden, learn how to preserve food, learn about the herbs, get together. Also, I encourage spiritual community, get together, pray, meditate, meet your neighbors, create synergies. This is important everywhere. But I believe Europe is about to have a very, very difficult winter ahead of them. Unfortunately, it's always been that way. Whenever huge changes have happened or, they wanted them to happen, it's always started in Europe, and it's the easiest to do there. Of course, they're taking away more and more national identity. They're taking more and more national pride from the people. Everybody who even dares to say, I love my country, is now an extremist, a Nazi, all of these things. But I encourage everyone to do that, actually, to take pride again, to protect your land, to protect your families. Most importantly, look after your most immediate needs. What can you do right now? Use all of what is available to you. Prepare with emergency food, prepare with preserved food. Create synergies in that too. Sometimes 3-4 neighbors together. If you put your minds and everything you have together, you might see that you have what it takes to get through this. And also, absolutely and 100%, do not comply with your own enslavement. This goes everywhere. But of course, we grew up in Europe, so we can read the situation a little better. It will require the resilience of the people. It will require a determination. It will require spine and backbone. And this hasn't been the strong suit, unfortunately, for the last years and decades of Europe. It just hasn't been, because of the slow, constant socializing and government intervention, over-regulation, overbearing laws, over-taxation, all these things. If you do not want the Great Reset, you'll own nothing and you will be happy. If you don't want to see people like Klaus Schwab and von der Leyen and Bill Gates and all the others who are involved in this, if you don't want them to take over, you need to get really, really wise, streetwise and smart right now and take all the action you can take to protect yourself, protect your families, and then go into every possible position that you can. Local governments, flood your local governments, flood your state governments, flood your country's governments in every position and begin taking over, or this nightmare will manifest, and it will manifest first in Europe. Australia has already gone down the drain in many ways. Of course, we know what's happening in China. This is what's happening now. False hope is never good because it isn't based on anything real. I have more than hope. I have a knowing that we can turn the ship around, but we all need to get aware here. And sometimes, like we just experienced here in Florida when Hurricane Ian came through, you also need to brace for impact. And those who have prepared for that, they might not have come out with everything they had before, but they came out with their lives and with the opportunity to rebuild. And at least that's what we should look at this point. Inspired Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. We love you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.